Good morning, everyone. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. Happy Friday. I know I'm sure happy it's a Friday. I don't know about you guys. No fun video today. Every time I start the show with a fun video, I get in trouble. So I thought, man, we've got a lot to talk about today. Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard's going to be joining me. I'm like, I do not want, for the show to be in trouble, deleted, whatever it is, lower on the algorithms because I post a video. I just love those videos though, the one that I put at the front of the video, but I'm like, man, I better not do that today because we've got some serious stuff to talk about now, don't we? Good morning, Rob. Some of the things I want to talk about today, I've had a long week. I've had a long week. Yesterday morning, I got up and just to go do some of my normal, anti-piracy work in St. Louis, and I got a message while I was there that, oh, we need you in Springfield, Missouri. So as soon as that was over, I hurried up and took off out to Springfield, Missouri. I didn't get home until 2:30 in the morning last night. And I don't know about you guys, but when I first get home from work, it doesn't matter if it's 2, 3 a.m. I have to wind down a little bit. So I didn't get to sleep until 4 a.m. Then I got up at 5:30. So when I woke up this morning, I was like, man, I'm sure we've all been there where you're so tired that you just feel sick. One of those kind of deals. And after the show today, I have to work. I work tomorrow, so no reprieve anytime soon. But I am not complaining because you know what? I am happy to have the work. But I will tell you, when you work in any form of law enforcement, when there's been like an officer involved shooting and things are a little heated, anything you do, you're a little bit worried about because you're going into a situation where you're expressing that authority and giving people rules that they may not want to comply with. And anytime we have a volatile situation like this, it makes people really on edge. And, it's just a crazy situation we're going through now. Gosh knows we've done it before. I've been kind of yesterday, I didn't really get a lot of opportunity to pay attention to the news. I tried to catch up a little bit last night, but man, things are pretty volatile right now in Minneapolis and a lot of other areas too. You guys probably heard about the ICE shooting, officer involved shootings that took place in Oregon. Now, that was against Trende Aragua gang members who were also resisting arrest. But, as we're going to talk about here shortly when we have Colonel Joe Adams pops in, what's the difference? That's what's the difference. I never thought I would use the term white privilege, but I find myself using it a lot over the past couple of days, white privilege, because I really do think that a lot of these very far left, fringe far left, liberal protesters or agitators, I think we prefer to call them agitators, they're out on these locations. And trust me, man, they are it is a war on ice. It really is. It's not just what you see in these little video clips, but it's usually young white women and they're pulling out, they're impeding officers, they're putting officers in very dangerous situations. And they think that because they're protesting, that they have the ability to go out and impede, lawful, a lawful order that these officers have to make arrests. And in this case, of course, we had Renee Nicole Good, who pulled out, impeded traffic, and she created a bottleneck of ICE officers, which is a very volatile situation because that street, you can hear it, the street was lined with protesters because guess what? Protesters follow these ICE officers around all day long. And because they're white, I think they can get away with it. I know that sounds crazy, but here we have Trende Aragua gang members who get shot by ICE. We're like, oh, that's totally normal. Gang members, trying to flee arrest, of course they're going to get shot. But a young white mother impeding traffic, also fleeing arrest, also running over a police officer. Oh, that's a whole different story, right? That's a whole different story. So we're going to talk about those differences. We're going to talk about the war on ICE because there is a war. It's not just ICE, but a war on law enforcement in general, but particularly federal agents. It's all about politics. That's all it is, because this is only happening in Democrat-led cities and states. It's not happening everywhere now, is it? And so therefore, we're going to show you some of the dangerous rhetoric that's coming out of the mouths of leaders, and why the situation is so volatile. While, in my opinion, blood is on their hands. This is all at their hands. It's all they're doing. They want this violence to occur, and people don't understand what these ICE officers are dealing with. Do you know these people? And I'm hearing that Renee Good was part of this group, and her wife Rebecca, where they go and they follow ICE. They have apps where they track ICE, and everywhere ICE goes, they try to impede the traffic. They play all these different loud noises, sirens and whistles and bells, anything they can to disrupt, and then they follow them back to their hotels, and they shine spotlights in the windows, disturbing all of the guests. They play loud music outside of hotels because they don't want hotels to house these ICE agents. It's just a big giant circus, and you know just as well as I do, we've talked about on the show before, it's a volatile situation. It was going to explode at some point. Now here we are, dealing with the aftermath. I'm going to bring Colonel Joe Adams in, and I'm going to show you a couple of little clips of the video. Some of the things we're going to talk about is Iran. There's not a lot that brings a tear to my eye these days because God knows I hear it all, but the potential freedom of Iranians is definitely one of those moments. I've been watching it very closely. We have Donald Trump talking about dropping bombs onto Mexico. We've got him bribing Greenlanders and working on the military budget, because guess what? We're going to war, aren't we? And I think we all know the writing on the wall. We're going to talk to Colonel Joe Adams about that. And let's see, I just want to read a couple comments. First, we're going to bring Colonel Adams in. Linda, we want you to rest. Thank you, Linda. I'm going to get some rest, probably on Sunday. Karen says, good morning. Good morning. Happy Friday to you. Matt Nickerson, my old neighbor, good morning to you. Phyllis, good morning. Jay says, the previous 4 years set a precedent that you can do this and there won't be consequences. You got that right, Jay. And oh, thank you, Peggy. You know what? Seriously, at 8:05, I had no makeup on. I've been really rushing it. Jay says the Minnesota Teachers Union thus morning claims everyone is at risk of being murdered. Yeah, I bet they are. Okay, let's bring Colonel Joe Adams in. He's been patiently awaiting me to bring him in. Here we go. Colonel Joe Adams of the Washington Guard. Good morning, Colonel Adams. I am so happy to see you. Thank you so much for agreeing to join me today, because we've got a lot to talk about, don't we?
Well, that's why I agreed to do the show this morning. There's things going in so many different directions. Maybe I could give you a hand at some of this stuff.
I need a hand, I'm telling you.
Yeah, where do you start? You start, and then I'll just chime in. So
okay, let's do this. Let's talk about the war on ICE first. The war on federal law enforcement. And Colonel Adams, I know you know this, but I don't think the general public knows, because as you know, most people just don't pay attention to the news. They're only looking at maybe some people don't even watch CNN, Fox, or MSNBC. They don't even watch any of that stuff. They just hear little words here and there. Then all of a sudden they hear that this young mother has a 6-year-old son at home. She gets shot for no reason at all. She's just turning her car around, and what they don't understand is that these people harass these federal agents. They find out what hotel they're going to stay at. They know when they're coming into town. They harass them at the hotel. They follow them every single place they go. They're punching their car windows. They're throwing rocks and bottles at them. And the ICE agents are told to stand down. Don't do anything.
Well, when you don't enforce the law, people aren't going to obey the law, and there lies the problem. And somebody posted that this thing started happening about 4 years ago. No, actually, it happened about 15 years ago during Ferguson.
Yes.
And with Antifa and Black Lives Matter. So the problem is everybody's so politically involved in this thing, don't want to look bad, that they don't enforce the law. Real soon, an ICE agent is going to be shot. Now,
yeah.
They're just. I mean, look how brave these men and women are. I mean, they're walking around with targets on their back, and they still do the job. And nobody respects them. Well, I do, but it's just a matter of time before an ICE agent or a police officer gets shot and killed. And as far as that lady up there in what was her name? Good.
Yeah,
there in,
yeah, Renee Nicole Good. That is correct. I believe she's 37 years old, has a 6-year-old child. And Colonel Adams, in a few minutes after we talk about this a little bit, we're going to watch a couple of the videos and break it down, because I'm going to say something that I think is against the popular opinion. And I want to make it very clear that the death of Renee Nicole Good is at her own hands. I mean, it is her own fault, her own actions that led to her death. I would never, blame the ICE officer in this instance. She did hit him with her car. We're going to talk about that. But I really don't think that that was her goal. And I think
what,
that most people are going to say, oh, no, she wanted him. I don't think so. And I'm going to show the distractions that were going on around her and the chaos around her, that maybe she didn't see him until it was too late. That doesn't justify her actions. She was evading arrest. She was resisting arrest. She was acting aggressively. That officer had every right to use lethal force. It doesn't matter whether or not she intended to hit him. The fact is, she was still resisting arrest.
no, you're exactly right. I couldn't have said it better. In fact, I was just talking to Dan, and she's, you're not going to take her side, are you? I said, no, but she did not try and run over that police officer. She was trying to get out of there.
Yeah.
He came from the right, out of her blind side. Got police officers outside of her window yelling at her back. No, she didn't try and kill anybody, but she could have killed that police officer by accident.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. He had every right to do what he did.
But in all the chaos, we're watching this stuff on TV and internet. But if you're there, the chaos and those riots, these aren't protests. These are riots, and everybody's talking about when insurrection, that Donald Trump pumped up the crowd to go to the Capitol and stuff. Well, he didn't even do that, but they blamed it on him. What do you think? What do you think Tim Wilson is doing, in the mayor of Minneapolis? I mean, they're actually, when calling about insurrection, Tim's going to go to prison anyway. So go ahead and do your videos. But you're absolutely right. She didn't try to kill that police officer.
Exactly. And, I tried to explain to people, that I've talked to about it, that is the last thing that officer wanted to do that day. The very last thing he wanted to do is to have to fire upon anyone and take a life. But you know what? At the end of the day, he's going to go home. And that's the right that he has, to go home at the end of the day. And he was standing where he was, I think, quite honestly, purely coincidental. We're going to show a video of the breakdown of how he got to where he was and why she may not have seen him. But, Matt makes a good point online, is that why do you think ICE protesters want illegal aliens in our country? Because that's what this is all about, isn't it? They're fighting, harassing, creating this hostile environment on ICE officers because they don't want the arrest and deportation of people who are in here in our country illegally. And we know exactly, well, there's probably a lot of reasons, but we know one of those big reasons is, of course, voting.
Yeah, especially voting.
And fraud, voting and fraud.
But people, crowd mentality. I've been through, training for riots, things like that. And remember, I spoke before when I was on riot duty in Washington before I had any training. But no, we deal with mob mentality. It only takes one or two people in the crowd to get the rest of the protesters, pumped up. So all those people there are not that crazy, but they go crazy because of mob mentality.
And the paid agitators. We always have to remember the paid agitators. Yeah. There are people in this crowd. Now, whether or not Renee Nicole Good and her wife Rebecca were paid, I don't know. I do not know. Allegedly she was living in Minneapolis at the time. Whether we'll get real information, about her, I don't know. But what we do know is there are paid agitators. We saw it take place here in the St. Louis area during the Michael Brown riots. I know I saw it where and of course it's always white people that are the paid agitators. You'll have what starts out to be a peaceful protest. And, I was working a lot of, different types of protest detail at the time. I saw a lot of this, firsthand. And then you'd have one of these white people, usually a socialist or a communist. They belong to one of these revolutionary, RevCom communist parties. And what they do is they're paid a lot of money. That's all they do. They're paid protesters. They just go from one town to the next. And they throw the first brick or the first rock or they're the ones causing all the chaos, because this is exactly what they want to happen.
Yeah, Kevin posted that don't forget that police officer had been dragged previously. So that's in your subconscious. People don't understand how your subconscious pretty much runs everything. So in his programming, he had been programmed because he got dragged. His brain's telling him, run, defend yourself. You're in danger. You're going to die. You're going to get ran over. I mean, who knows what's going on? But I kind of agree with see Drew. Yeah, Drew posted that he shouldn't have been working. Maybe he shouldn't have been. That's a good point. But it doesn't matter.
Right.
It doesn't matter. He was put on, flight or fight, and he had to fight to save his life, and that's what his brain was telling him.
And it doesn't, what does he have, like a nanosecond to make this decision? Again, we're going to play the videos in a minute, as much as I can of them. But, Colonel Adams, one video I can't play, I did post it to my personal Facebook page, and it got a great big warning on it. I'm not even sure if other people can see it. There was another officer during the, some former Minneapolis riots in which, as you recall, she was ran over by a Jeep, and she did die of her injuries. And you see how fast it happened. She hesitated. That's the problem. She hesitated. And I think that 1 second hesitation, she lost her life because she hesitated. She was only able to fire one shot, which still allowed that Jeep to run her over. And so, this Officer Ross in this case, he doesn't have the luxury of being able to hesitate long enough to even think, gee, I need to get out of the way or this or that. You don't have that time. We do, because we have the luxury of hindsight, but he doesn't have that.
That's one of the problems with law enforcement training. They are actually trained to hesitate. So anyway, go ahead and do your videos. I want to see this.
Yeah, because this is, I think some of these videos are important. Now I'm going to show the first one that I think most important first, because this is going to show, and at the time when I first posted about this, I didn't realize that the lady in the white cap, I didn't even know it was a man or a woman. Yeah. It was Rebecca, the wife. And so we're going to talk about the chaos. And I want to set the scene here. First of all, remember what happened before this video starts, because I'm not going to show the long video. And there is a video where it shows Renee Nicole Good in her vehicle pull up. Somebody gets out, which we now know is Rebecca, her wife, and then she moves her car into the line of traffic. And there are a couple cars that pass. These are just normal people. But when she sees ICE or officers pass, she lurches forward towards them and then backs up again. So she was acting very aggressively. And the other part of the scenario that you don't necessarily know by watching these videos is there's a lot of people there on the side of the road. A lot of people there agitating ICE because they have followed ICE there. They've tracked them there. They've created like a parade route. So when she pulls her vehicle up, she creates a bottleneck. And I'm not going to show that bottleneck where you have 10, I believe it was like 9 or 10 vehicles carrying ICE officers who are bottlenecked up there. They can't get past. That's a very dangerous situation for these officers, which is why they, I'm sure, felt compelled to get out and try to make an arrest. So I'm going to show you this quick video here and I'm going to slow it down when I play it so that we can see it. Now, the person talking is not Rebecca. It's one of the others. You're all the agitators?
No! Shame! Shame! Oh my fucking God!
Okay, so I'm going to stop this right here, because we all know what happens in the video. Now, this vehicle you see right here, this gold SUV, that belongs to Officer Ross, the officer that fired the shots. And he just arrived moments before. Now, I'm going to back this up because I want you to see something. Now, do you see here, if you look here, do you see the woman in the white cap, Rebecca? You see Officer Good's vehicle to right behind her, to her right. And then you see Officer Ross to her left. You see she's got her hand up. She is taking video of Officer Ross right there. He just pulled up. He parked his car. He walked back to the back of Rebecca Good's car, where you see him now. And then what happens is Rebecca starts to, or I'm sorry, Renee, that's Renee's car. Rebecca starts to harass him. She's taking video. she's basically putting him in a flight mode where he's kind of going around, probably just annoyed with her. So I'm going to start up and then we'll pause again. See how she's following him? He's also recording because this is a very tense situation for all of them. So she's recording him. He's got his phone out recording, and she is literally following him around the vehicle. A lot of chaos ensuing all at once. So here we have the other vehicle pulling up of ICE officers, and these are the officers. They're going to get out and attempt to remove Renee Nicole Good from her car. So we're going to see them coming up to her window here, and they're going to tell her to get out of the vehicle. Hear them? They're saying, get out of the car. Now, what you don't see is that on the other side of this vehicle, we have Rebecca, and she is still following, videotaping Officer Ross. And then you have Officer Ross who comes up around the right side. So here we have, Renee Nicole Good in the driver's seat. We have officers here telling her to get out. We have her wife leaning into her back passenger window on her right, telling her who knows what, probably to flee. We have Officer Ross walking up in front of the vehicle, probably not even realizing at this time what all is going on because he's being harassed. And of course, we have the shooting.
God! What the fuck? What the fuck? You just fucking, what the fuck did you do?
So we're going to stop that video there and we're going to look at another. I know there's one that's in slow motion. I'm going to get to that one too. Yeah, that's pretty much the same thing. I've got a couple different videos here. I hope I loaded the one that was... Okay, there... I don't know. Apparently... I know I loaded... This must be the slow motion. Now you see her wheels pointing towards Officer Ross. You see him getting lifted up off of the ground. All right, Colonel Adams, I want your commentary.
She got what she deserved. He should have shot the woman in the white hat too. She's, she was coaching Good to what to do. So, yeah, she that lady in the white hat got her. Is it a husband or wife? Who's
They're both wives. They're both wives in this scenario.
Who's the pitcher? Who's the catcher? Anyway, she got what she deserved. Too bad the woman in the white hat, she didn't get shot too. She deserved it. She promoted the whole thing. So, hey, good breakdown of that, Tab. That was really good.
Colonel Adams, it's frustrating to me, and you and I have talked about it on this show numerous times, and we have both said that this is bound to happen. It's bound to happen. How many times have we talked about our frustration towards, various governments, including the Trump administration, that they're not doing more, that we're coddling these entitled white liberal agitators. We're just coddling them. We allow them to do anything they want. They attack ICE officers. Like I said, they follow them around. Just think how these ICE officers feel. They're tracked the minute they get to their hotel. They have these agitators outside of their hotel screaming, yelling, putting spotlights on the hotel windows, chasing literally everyone else away to where hotels don't even want ICE to be there, because it's flat out harassment. But no one does anything about it. We have apps where they can track ICE everywhere they go. And here we've all seen the videos where ICE is attempting to make a legal arrest. And these people are getting in between ICE. Now, Colonel Adams, outside of a protest, what other scenario would this be allowed?
None. I mean, I can't imagine that. This basically is from a protest into civil unrest. I mean, it changes the whole scenario. But until they start arresting these people, I mean, I actually heard somebody say, well, we don't have enough jail space. Well, find it. When we worked in Washington, we used cattle cars to move people out and just loaded up the cattle cars. So anyway, this is going to continue. I feel sorry for the ICE agents that's going to die, but somebody will. Eventually, somebody's going to shoot them. So
it is. It's not a matter of of if, it's just when, probably sooner rather than later. And of course they're on guard. I mean, of course they are. Can you imagine? Just put yourself in their place. And Colonel Adams, I know you can. I'm asking everyone else, put yourself in their place. You know, again, the harassment is nonstop. They're scared to eat because they don't know what people are going to do to their food. The McDonald's, and there's a McDonald's in Minneapolis that has an armed guard outside specifically to keep federal agents away. They're not allowed to enter this McDonald's. We had that Hilton also in the Minneapolis, I think that was Minneapolis, where they wouldn't allow them to stay there.
Yeah.
I mean, it is just unbelievable to me. Absolutely unacceptable, unbelievable. And I'm not trying to come down on Donald Trump. I don't think he has said enough. I don't think he's done enough. And we hear all this hateful rhetoric, and we're going to play some of that here in a second. Do you think Donald Trump has done enough?
I think that he's done what he's doing what he can do. You know, what we've got here is a scenario where right is wrong and wrong is right, and that's our society is basically functioning on that now. They've been getting away with it until something big happens. You know, a common enemy attacking the United States or something. This is going to continue, but they got to start locking these people up. More are going to die. Period.
You've got that right. You know, and I'm going to ask this to Drew Collins, because Drew Collins, I've known Drew Collins for many, many years. I think he used to, you know, call up to a show I was on, gosh, back in like 2012. So Drew's been around for a while. Drew is a black man. Now, you know, I've asked this question to Drew Collins before. As a black man, do you think, or would you even consider, you know, pulling out in front of a long line of ICE federal agent vehicles and lurching at them when they drive past? And then, you know, first of all, I think the answer to that would be no. And then second of all, whenever officers approach your vehicle and they're trying to open your door and tell you to get out, pull you aside because they're going to arrest you, and then there's an officer in front of you, and you know, you're spinning your wheels, you know, and you're lurching forward towards this officer. I think that Drew's answer would be no, because he knows he would be shot, right? But why is it when it's a liberal white person, particularly a liberal white woman, they think they have this entitled ability, this coddling that we do for these agitators, where they think they're not going to get shot. They can do anything they want. Nothing's going to happen to them. And then when something does happen, they cry and boo-hoo, and it's just a big spectacle.
Yeah. I don't think Drew would be in that situation.
No, he wouldn't. He knows better.
I know.
So why doesn't this woman know better?
What did we say before? Oh, the Karens. Yeah, we got a bunch of Karens out there. Remember I told you that I didn't know what that meant, but it's just, you know, middle-aged, dissatisfied woman. So anyways, and don't forget her judgment. I mean, she's married to another woman. I thought somebody was pulling my leg when they sent me that, but I guess not. So, oh well.
Well, I haven't heard if she's a member of Antifa or any of these paid agitators. I haven't heard that much, and we'll probably, you know, possibly never know. Now, you know, one of the angles I also want to talk about is that the state of Minnesota, the city of Minneapolis, they want to charge and prosecute Officer Ross. So, of course, the FBI is withholding any files, any details of the investigation until they have made a determination. And I think that's really good thinking, you know, on the behalf of the FBI, of course. But do you, and of course, we're probably going to see a civil suit come out of this. We know that always happens. Either the wife is going to sue, the family of Good is going to sue, somebody's going to sue. I guarantee you that, for millions of dollars. And they're probably going to get it because Minneapolis will pay that out to them. Do you think that Officer Ross is going to face charges?
No. And as far as Minneapolis paying a settlement, well, first of all, ICE is a federal agent, not a local police officer. So
correct.
I don't think that Minneapolis is liable for something like that, because they've come in under the authority of the federal government. So I don't think so. Yeah. Somebody will sue. I mean, the attorneys right now are on our doorstep going, we got to talk. So.
No, there's no question about that. But I think we all know, you know, no officer wants to be the next Darren Wilson or Derek Chauvin. And I think we all know there have been plenty of officers who were doing their job, in my opinion, Darren Wilson, Derek Chauvin, doing their job as they were supposed to do. And then they get blamed for the death of somebody who resisted arrest and end up in prison, or some very bad situation. So nothing, I don't put anything past them. I don't put anything past Democrats.
No, unless the cops deranged, but no police officer wants to pull his service pistol and kill a person for any reason other than if their life's being threatened. So, or to protect the public.
Now, do you blame Democrat leaders for their dangerous rhetoric? And Colonel Adams, I'm going to play 2 videos for you. One is, of course, Adam Schiff, as always. Oh, she's just an innocent mom in the middle of the street. And then we're going to have I think he's the DA in Philadelphia warning ICE, just like so many other Democrat-led cities have. Don't come here. So let's listen to Adam Schiff first. We're going to go through these pretty quick.
I was struck by a few things. First of all, it's horrifying to watch. And to think about this 37-year-old woman drops her kid off at school, not involved in protest activity or anything, seems to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But at one point, she's waving other cars to come on past, trying to make sure that she's not in the way, although she's been pulled over. And then you see her trying to turn away from these officers, and the shots fired in.
Okay, no accountability.
Any law enforcement agent, any ICE agent is going to come to Philly to commit crimes, then you can get the F out of here. Because if you do that here, I will charge you with those crimes. You will be
his video goes on and on.
Here, Tab, I want to mention this. It's like Tim Walz and the rest of them. When people talk like that, our politicians, our political leaders, when they talk like that, what they're doing, they're telling the mob, it's okay.
Yes.
It's okay. Therein lies the problem. And the reason they're telling the crowd it's okay because they hate Donald Trump. They want this to reflect back on Donald Trump.
Yes.
Adam Schiff. I mean, these guys, they're clowns. But, in fact, because of their lies and their hate for Trump is causing these problems. These riots, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, all of these groups, it's because of the Democrats. It's not because of Donald Trump.
Yeah, you got that right, because you know what? And I can't recall who on the comment line said it, but what about under Obama's term? Obama used ICE in the exact same way that Donald Trump is doing. And Obama at that time had deported more illegals out of this country than any other president. Bill Clinton, quite a few as well. But Obama had held the record until Donald Trump. I don't remember any Democrats being upset or fighting ICE back in those days. Now, were they?
No. Jade posted that the left wing wants conflict. Exactly.
They do.
Exactly.
They want a civil war.
Yeah. Well, they're going to keep messing around. They're going to get one.
They're going to get it. Yeah, they're definitely going to get it. And Colonel Adams, I couldn't agree with you more. This is very dangerous rhetoric coming from leaders. These are people that Democrats look up to. They're the people who guide them and offer guidance to them, and they're supposed to be the role model for some of these people. And every time you turn around, they're justifying what these people are doing. You heard Adam Schiff just do it. The I think he's the DA again in Philadelphia. I'm not even going to give the guy the airtime to say his name. We're hearing it out of all these different cities. We heard it from Tim Walz. We heard it from the mayor of Minneapolis. We're hearing it from Portland, Oregon, who just this morning has said that all ICE officers have to leave the state of Oregon. But no one is standing up and saying, hey, you agitators, paid agitators, you're not welcome in my city or in my state. Why isn't that happening?
That's the crazy part. And who wants illegal aliens in this country? They are saying, you can't deport these people. It doesn't matter about the fraud and the billions of dollars they took from the taxpayers. Oh, that doesn't matter. They have a right to be here. No, they don't. They don't have a right at all. I say deport them all. So, but I mean, they're just this is insanity of what's going on in this country. And the instigators are the Democrats. And the good Democrats go along with the bad Democrats, but for the most part, they're all rotten.
It just doesn't make any sense. And I know Democrat people in my real life, who talk to me about this stuff, and they say, I don't like what happened here. I think it's a terrible situation. I don't know, obviously people who, before they saw the full video, they didn't think the officer had the right to use lethal force. And they're saying, even a lot of the Democrats I know saying, I wish this didn't happen. It's a tragedy on all sides, and it is a tragedy. I have a lot of compassion for all people, and that includes, Renee Nicole Good. I don't want to see her die. I don't want to see her being shot. I don't want to see any harm coming to these agitators. But they place themselves in these positions, and they don't understand. What it comes down to, you cannot play games with law enforcement. If you do, you're going to find out what happens.
Unfortunately, yes, but I still say that lady in the white hat, her wife,
Oh yeah,
caused her to do what she did.
There's video of her.
All she had to do was get out of the car.
Yeah, there's video of her saying, talking to herself and crying, saying that it was all her fault. She was taking, blame for what happened. She said she's the one who asked her to come there that day. They were originally in the vehicle together, and then the wife got out so that she could videotape, because they're playing games with federal agents. They don't see it as a big deal. They don't see it as an arrestable offense. Why? Because we have these Democrat leaders telling them it's okay to follow ICE. It's okay to track ICE. It's okay to impede them. It's okay to attack them. I don't understand it. And then these idiots, I'm sorry, but these idiots who are the agitators outlining the streets actually think that they can get away with it. How does this go? If I get pulled over by the police, which thank God has only happened a couple times in my life, guess what I do? I am polite. I am ready. Whatever command they give me, man, I'm going to do it. It doesn't matter. I'm going to do whatever they ask me to do. Even if I didn't do anything wrong, man, I will sort it out later. But these people just antagonize the police on purpose.
Yep.
And they think it's okay to do that.
When I get stopped, I'm keeping my hands on the steering wheel in plain sight. So
exactly.
I mean, these people are here out there to protect us and to help this community, any community, and enforce the law, but they're not allowed. Somebody's telling them you can't do that. So they want to enforce the law to a point, and then they're told not to, or all these people would be in. Get worse. This is going to be another rats. What the protesters don't understand, those people have guns. These law enforcement have guns, and they
real
use
guns with real bullets.
You don't want to get downrange. I'm telling you. So there'll be more. It's
mind-boggling.
The curious thing is what's going to happen when they shoot a law enforcement officer.
Man,
matter of time.
It is a matter of time. And when this shooting actually first was reported, it was reported as an officer was shot. Mm-hmm. And then the story, of course, updated, and we found out that it was one of the agitators. And I hope that anyone listening, if you haven't already, go out and watch not just this video, go out and watch the videos of all the agitators. I don't have an isolated video to show here, but I shared a video on my Facebook page yesterday that showed the chaos while these ICE officers were out making an arrest. And I don't even remember what town they were in, but I think it was Rhode Island. They were making an arrest, and you have all these people lined up on the street who have followed ICE there because they follow them everywhere they go. And there was probably about 20 people out on the street. And while ICE is trying to make an arrest, these people are pushing the officers. They're touching them, pushing them. Officers, instead of making the arrest they're having to hold back the agitators. And in the meantime, these freaking lunatics are out there blowing whistles, playing these loud sirens, talking through these big bullhorns, rattling God knows what, all this crazy noise. And it would literally cause a person, I think, to go insane. These officers are seriously going to get PTSD from working these shifts just because of these people. I want to know, why is no one doing anything about it? Why aren't they just arresting them all? But if you go out and you follow an ICE officer, guess what? You're going to go to jail for a really long time.
Well, I agree. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But don't forget, the officers want to do their job.
Yes,
Somebody's
yes, they
telling
do.
you you can't do your job. Period.
It's man, it's so frustrating to me, Colonel Adams. It is so frustrating to me that these officers have to go through this on a day-to-day basis. They're trying to protect us, American citizens. They're trying to safeguard our national security. They're out doing their job. These are lawful orders, but we have Democrats saying, "Oh, those are not lawful orders." Because they're not lawful orders, hey, you agitators, you can go out and treat these officers any way you want because they're here illegally. They don't have the right to act. Oh, well, guess what? Yes, they do. And then they find out the hard way.
That's where we're at. Wrong is right and right is wrong. Hey, I'd like to comment on some strategy that Trump's working. Cuba especially. Now people understand that we used to go in there to take those oil to take them back. Okay, it wasn't a military. That's not the objective. The objective was to get that guy out of office. Now there's two more politicians down there with millions of dollars bounties on their head, and they happen to be brothers of that president right now that they put in the meantime. She's not going to last long.
Oh, Delcy Rodriguez. You mean you said Cuba, Venezuela?
She was in business with the cartel and everybody, so she's still involved. They got to get rid of her. But I don't know if people realize this, but most of those oil wells down there were built by American corporations. So they simply go back so they build all these oil wells, get them all up and running, and then Maduro's is out.
Yeah.
So us taking is not illegal. We're just taking back what they stole.
And we're giving it back to the Venezuelan people. You know, Trump just announced that, first of all, let me say this. We're going to talk about this more throughout the show. There is a price tag that comes with liberation. There is. We're going to help you. We're going to talk about that when it comes to Iran. We're going to talk about it when it comes to Mexico, who we're, potentially going to launch some airstrikes on. And that's the same case with Venezuela. We liberated you. We liberated the people. And in exchange for that liberation, there is a price tag. Now, here's what's so interesting. I talked about this on the show. I guess I don't even remember what day I was on the show last. Was it Wednesday? And we have 50 million barrels of oil coming from Venezuela that we, the United States, are going to sell. But guess what? We're going to give the profit back to the citizens of Venezuela. It's not all about us. We are also trying to help out those citizens that we have secured their freedom.
If that's possible, the only person that can see it done would be Donald Trump.
Yes.
Can you imagine Biden doing this? No. It'd end up in somebody's pocket. But no, he did the right thing. But Cuba has always been on the radar, clear back before the Bay of Pigs. And I know a lot about Cuba. I've been to Cuba a couple of times. I took Deanna once. I belong to what they call the Pan American Pistol Club. It's located in Florida, and it's all Cubans. You can only talk about racial. I was the only gringo in the entire pistol club, and they had hundreds of members. Cuban-only pistol club. In fact, it was called Cuban American Pistol Club, and those were all either their grandfather or their father was involved during the Bay of Pigs, and so they lost their country. So down in Miami, you'll go down to Little Havana, and they are just, this is their opportunity. So they're going to turn Rubio into a national hero because he wants Cuba back too. And here's the choke on Cuba is the fact they get all their oil from Venezuela. Now they got to deal with us. So
right.
So Trump said something early on that he's going to turn the economy around. He said, but first it's going to be painful. The problem is the chokehold on Cuba is going to hurt the average poor person. And most people in Cuba are poor, by the way.
Correct. And that's because of the socialism. Socialism makes everyone poor.
Yeah, there you go. But I always tell everybody, go to Cuba now before it changes, when it becomes modern again. It's a piece of history. But
it is. And Colonel Adams, things are about to change on a very big scale. things are about to change, in so many ways. We have Cuba on the agenda. We just had Donald Trump announcing airstrikes on Mexico, which is a pretty big announcement that we haven't done it yet. But he said, hey, we're going to go over to Mexico, drop a few bombs, and eliminate the cartel. If he says he's going to do it, I believe he'll do it. But more than anything, like I said at the beginning of the show today, there's not a lot that makes me teary-eyed because I've seen it all, I've talked about it all. But when I see the people of Iran out in the streets, I see 2,000 women running a banned marathon without their hijabs, running, because this is something they've dreamed of their entire life. And we have these massive protests taking place across Iran. It does. I'm like, man, people need to wake up and see the historical moment that's unfolding before our eyes and the implications and the ripple effect this is going to have across the world.
Well, it's like Trump in Greenland. And when he first said about annexing Greenland, people thought he was joking. And I had told my wife early on, we really ought to go out of Greenland. And all of a sudden, we're going after Greenland. But Trump's ingenious the fact that he's going to actually use the European countries to back him on this move. Who owns that place? Denmark?
Denmark. But I don't think, Italy, they're going to pretty much do. I'm convinced that Maloney has a crush on Elon Musk. I absolutely do think that Italy will back us, but I don't think Macron, and yes, I know his name's Macron. I don't think Macron in France is going to assist us in anything. In fact, I heard this morning that they were, beefing up NATO troops to try to prevent us from taking Greenland. But Donald Trump, he's got a plan. He said that he's going to offer the citizens of Greenland anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000 a piece to vote for America.
Yeah, but the strategy is Greenland, asset-wise, would be a big asset as far as national security, national defense. He's convincing NATO and the European countries that if the United States is under attack, we're not going to be there to help you. And if they attack the United States, you're next. If anybody, right. China or Russia. So by them backing him and allowing him to annex in some matter Greenland, it actually helps Europe. That's the leverage. Either help us now, and knowing Donald Trump, he might just do it anyway. You know how many Chinese ships and Russian ships up around Greenland are constantly in those waters? What are they up there for? But he's serious.
He is serious. I don't think it's the first thing on his agenda, but I do think that he is serious about Greenland. But I do think he's going to do it diplomatically. I don't expect us to use military force to go in and take Greenland. I played a video the other day on the show where we had the prime minister of Greenland. They're like, oh, Donald Trump, if you do this, we're going to take all of your military bases from Romania to wherever, and you're going to have nothing left, and blah blah blah, just a bunch of BS. But I don't think that we're going to take Greenland by force. I really don't.
Well, I hope not.
I hope not either, because that'll have also a lot of implications. And I'm in a minute, I'm going to go back and talk more about Iran. But one thing that kind of was breaking news while we were, talking, I read a little bit about it, real early this morning, and that we were planning on doing it. Now we have done it, and that is we have seized a Russian oil tanker called Olena, because the Trump administration believes that using this particular oil tanker is how they're evading sanctions against oil, because they're, of course, they don't need us. But I'm a little bit surprised by that move, and I don't think that's going to go over very well with Russia.
Too bad. Yeah, they're putting Russian flags on those ships now. They're changing flags, and then they change the registration overnight. So, I mean, we're on to them. We know what's going on.
Well, they literally, what, Colonel Adams, they literally did change the registration over. I mean, they literally did. This exact same ship, I can't remember, was it Indian? I can't remember the flag that was on it. And it was like 5 minutes later, it was Russian. I'm like, what is happening here?
Yeah, same people just change the sign. That's all they did was just change the sign.
And anyway, yeah, it's really wild to me. But I am firmly convinced that Donald Trump and Putin have a good relationship. That even though Putin may not like some of the things Donald Trump does, including, what happened with taking Maduro from Venezuela. The only thing Putin had to say about that is, hey, it's illegal, but guess what? It's consistent for Donald Trump because he's doing what he has to do to protect the national interest of the United States. I don't think that Putin necessarily likes some of the things he does, but I think he understands, and that creates a little bit of rapport between them.
I think so too. He always has. I think so too. This Tim Walz character, this is he's a typical Democrat. Can you imagine? He was almost vice president. And what were they thinking when they brought him on the platform to be vice president? The guy's an idiot.
Well, they were thinking how much fraud they can get past him because he'll sign off on anything they ask him to do. He's just another puppet, as so many of them are. I fully expect he's going to be forced to resign. And he has already said he's not, of course, running for re-election. And I hope we get more resignations. That's why I am in favor. In Colonel Adams, we talked about this the other day, the Core Five. And that's part of, and it's a real part of Donald Trump's strategic plan for national security is what they're calling it C5, like you would say G7, C5, Core 5. And thank you that day for correcting me. It's the United States, Japan, Russia, China, and India. And if you think about that group together, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, it is the only way we keep Democrats from coming back into office again. And by Democrats, I don't mean a good, blue dog Democrat. I'm talking about somebody who is part of the deep state, the cabal, people who just want to run this country underground. I think that's our only option.
Yeah, I mean, just common sense wise, who would put the Democrats back in office? Of course, the Democrats will, but that's the last thing we need is the Democrats there. The stupidity of putting him up for vice president. See, people don't think about. Don't forget, the person you vote for vice president could be president. So you're actually voting for the two presidents. If the first one goes, vice president. We don't have that problem in the Republican Party. They've lost their mind. People ask me all the time, are we going to have a civil war? If you put the Democrats back in office, there's your civil war.
Are we going to have a real war? Donald Trump's putting, what is it? Is it 1.5? I had it earlier. I didn't write any notes down today, so I'm having a hard time remembering things. But is it 1.5 billion or million into beefing up our military? Now, the reason why he wants to do that is because we're going to have a war, aren't we? Who are we going to have a war with?
That's inevitable. Look at our history. We've always had wars.
But there's so much going on in the world that when I see the money that Donald Trump is wanting to put into our military and build up our bases, I'm like, okay, he's preparing for the inevitable. No question about it. But I can't picture in my mind any scenario outside of a civil war, which I don't think that's the case in him beefing up the military. But who are we going to go to a war against? I don't think it's going to be Russia. It could be China, but I really don't even see that happening because part of Donald's strategic plan is to buddy up to Russia and China. So it's like, is it going to be the UK? Is it going to be Greenland? Who in the world is it going to be? Islam? Who are we going to be at war with? I don't understand.
Yeah.
None of it makes sense. I guess it'll just have to play itself out.
Yeah, it's hard to fathom. It really is. Never get into a fight that there's any chance of losing. And if you look at these different countries, that's what I'm talking about. If China would hit the United States, they're going to take a beating. If Russia would attack the United States, they're going to take a beating. So why would you do something that there's a chance of you losing?
Correct. Correct. I couldn't agree more.
Iran now, that's a different story.
I know.
Now's the time. Now's the time.
It is going to happen. It's going to send ripple waves. Big waves all across the world. And Colonel Adams, I know you probably already know this, but something I want to throw out there really quick is that this is something I have confirmed. Okay, I can't give you a source. I can't show you an article. It's just something that's been confirmed to me on a personal level. And that is that we are very strategically involved in the uprising that's taking place in Iran. We've
Yeah.
had special operations forces there for a while. Remember we've talked about before Timber Sycamore, that was the operation we had to oust Assad under Obama. I don't know the name for this operation, but we have a very similar operation going on in Iran where we've had special operation forces there training, arming, weaponizing some of the Iranian citizens so that they can fight the regime. So we've been behind this from day one, this uprising. We've given these people, I get chills thinking about it. We've given them the strength and the security to move forward. We have a massive number of troops right there, right now, en route. They've been en route for 2 days now, I believe. And they're just waiting to facilitate that regime change.
And don't forget, we got Israel.
Correct.
Israel's saying, give us the green light, we'll go. Yeah, but they need to continue this and finally get rid of that regime over there. The Ayatollah, whatever it is, the Khomeini, or they're all the same name. So, yeah, go to a mosque and throw some rocks. So, yeah, keep the pace up, and now's our shot at Iran.
I feel it. I've got chills even thinking about it, Colonel Adams. It is going to happen. It's going to happen, in my opinion, right now. The regime has already made plans to, take sanctuary out in Moscow.
Yeah.
I think it's going to happen. I don't think there's any turning back from where things are right now. We're too far past the regime gaining control again. I think they're going to have no choice but to flee. And then Kevin Joseph asked, is the Shah, going to come back? I think he is. What do you think?
You mean the Shah?
He's
dead.
Oh, well, no. Obviously, then no, not that one. But he was he was their former president. And, he's staging a comeback. The people are marching around with his, photo on all of their flags and so on. And he has made countless videos that, hey, he's ready, he's coming back. But we saw this situation in Venezuela, too, where Machado, whatever, her name might be, she also had won an election and was never given the opportunity to run Venezuela because, of course, Maduro took over. And now Donald Trump said, nope, sorry, even though she won the election, she doesn't have enough respect. We're not going to allow her to take control. Is that going to happen in Iran also?
The Shah? Oh, without
Correct.
a doubt. Yeah. We did the same thing with the one that died of cancer years and years and years ago.
Yes.
Yeah. When the Ayatollah took over. So yeah, we'll use that. And that's think about Japan. Now, why didn't we kill the head or the president? What do they call him in Japan? Not the prime minister. We put him back in power after the war because the people loved him and honored him, and he would help us rebuild Japan. So they're going to use the Shah, just like we did the Emperor.
Emperor, yeah. I'm sitting here. I'm like, I know the word. I don't get it out. Well, and I think in Iran, a lot like what they're probably going to do now. Now, Donald Trump, by the way, is scheduling a meeting to meet with Machado, by the way, to talk about what's going on in Venezuela. So he might be softening up a little bit on that idea. But I think they're going to hold another election in Venezuela. I think they'll hold an election as well in Iran, and they're going to let the people vote for who they want to be in those offices.
That thing in Venezuela with that president, what didn't make sense that we have bounties on her brother's heads, both of them, and she's and they were in cahoots with Maduro. So I don't understand that. And
I don't understand it either. And there's still fighting going on in Venezuela. There's been well over 100 Venezuelans that have been killed, through this consistent fighting. You can see it at night. We still have troops in Venezuela. We can see them fighting. If you know where to look, you can see the fights taking place. And I'll tell you what I also don't understand, Colonel Adams, why Delcy Rodriguez was given the opportunity to be the interim president of the country makes no sense to me. And what did her government do? And we talked about this on Monday when you were here, is that at that time it was not on the news. It's only been very briefly mentioned on the news since, as the government ordered the arrest of anyone out celebrating, anyone out supporting the United States. And now we have these motorcycle gangs going around and, murdering people and arresting people, for being happy about the liberation.
Yeah. I don't know how many troops are there now. We're going to have to send troops in, if nothing else,
Peacekeepers.
under the guise as peacekeepers.
Yeah.
So
No, and we're doing the same thing with Iran. We have our peacekeepers are already stationed nearby. We're going to let the people do what they need to do. We probably won't hear about the United States involvement in Iran, maybe for months to years. It might take a long time for that classified information, to be released. But we are already there. We already have peacekeepers. That's why I know it's going down, is because we already have hundreds of peacekeeping troops, right there, just waiting to step in. But we're going to let the people do as much as they can do on their own.
right, but you're absolutely right about all those things.
But Colonel Adams, here's something, and I know I might be putting you on the spot on this situation, and it's something that my mind has a hard time wrapping around, and maybe that's because most of my life, we've had this situation where the Iranian regime was in charge in Iran, and of course, I don't remember a time when things weren't like they are. I see the photos, I've seen the videos, I know the situation that took place, but once the regime has had to flee Iran, the people have taken over. They're once again back to being a free people. What effect is that going to have on world politics?
Well, it's not going to help Islam, that's for sure.
Correct.
So we have to make sure this does not appear as an attack on Islam, because we're after a regime change, yes. But first of all, we even denied that. Now it has to happen. But people, it's not that we're scared of Islam. You just don't want to give Islam, the bad guys, an excuse to cause more problems. And they're already, I mean, is that anybody ever looked at where Islam is on this planet and how they've grown
exponentially?
Stay with the regime change and stay away from waging war on an ideology. Even though if I had my choice and I was a young Marine again, I would love to go to war with Islam, and that's going to happen within these borders. I really mean it. Probably the first civil war we're looking at is the good old boys rising up against Islam. I mean, it's all over the internet. 10 years ago, nobody spoke like that. We talked. Remember I told you just 4 years ago, the police chief in Washington said that I was Islamophobic. Well, that's all changed. He's gone. So what I've been talking about for years is now happening. People have woke up to Islam and found out what it's all about.
And it's happening in different areas, of the world. I mean, look at what's happening again in Iran, where we have a group of people, many of them have been raised in the Muslim faith. However, they don't want to wear a black burqa. They don't want to wear a hijab. They want to wear jeans. They want to play music. I've seen them. Just think of the peace they feel over these past 4 or 5 days, where they've been running, again, women running marathons, people wearing jeans, letting their hair flow. They're going to concerts. I actually saw a concert, which I just couldn't believe, playing like rock music in the middle of Tehran, which is something they would have all been beheaded for, just a couple weeks ago. And think about this from the proxy perspective, because we know Iran has all of these proxy wars taking place. We've got Hezbollah, we've got the Houthis. That's going to have a profound effect on what's going on in Lebanon, what's going on in Yemen. I mean, we're just the world is changing before our eyes. Most people aren't paying attention to it, but the entire political spectrum around the world is changing right now.
Big time. I had a strange thing over the holidays. I got a new granddaughter, and she's about 4 months old now, and I'm holding her, and it hit me. If we don't somehow save this country, what's this country going to be like when she grows up?
Correct.
And it actually concerned me.
Here's the question, though, Colonel Adams. Are you willing to die for it? Put yourself in the place of some of these Iranians who are, seriously, many have and many will, willing to die for their freedom. Are we, as Americans, willing to die for that freedom?
Well,
You've already put your life on the line for our freedom. So I know your perspective, of course. But what about the average American? Are we willing? Do we want freedom enough? Are we there yet to where we're willing to die for it?
I volunteered for 5 military combat deployments. I never sat in an office, sit in a chair. I was always in in a hot zone. But I was thinking about that yesterday, and when somebody asked me how come I stayed in so long, and how come all of my roles were as a combat role? Why? And I thought, they go, did you like it? And I said, well, when I was here, I wanted to be there. When I was there, I wanted to be here. I guess I liked it, but it accomplished something. You know, I saved a lot of men's lives just by making the right decision on operations. And so I mean, there's a lot of grandkids and kids running around in Croatia that wouldn't be here for it. Wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me.
Correct.
Wouldn't be alive. So the big detachment of the 9th Marines, I called the right shot and saved the day.
And you continue to do your part, of course, with the Washington Guard. But my fear is that Americans, we're not to that point yet. We've not experienced enough strife yet to where we're willing to put it all on the line and fight for freedom for our grandchildren.
I'm willing to die for my country. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, me and my wife were talking the other night. I should never live past 41. And I got a birthday coming up. I'll be 76. I like that number. I don't like the age. But, I took an oath to protect this country and do it in spite of itself. I would be happy to die for my country, but I prefer to help the enemy die for his. That's what I prefer. So, part of the reason that I started the Washington Guard, because I saw this country in trouble with Biden.
Correct.
I didn't plan on. I worked for 12 years with Border Patrol, and I came home, and after 12 years, and they said, why did you leave Border Patrol when you do 20? I said, because we're winning. I used to have supervisors find out who I am, and they would say, hey, Colonel, what in the hell are you doing out here? Why are you here? And I said, I'm trying to work myself out of a job. And I did. And then the elections happened, Biden gets elected, and it all went to hell. So, yeah, I'm willing to die for any time, but I prefer to have the enemy die for his country. Who said that? George Patton. Okay. By the way, I've got George Patton's uniform in my museum here. So
I did not. I think I did know that.
Yeah. Why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? I got a 42 Harley Davidson sitting in there too, in perfect condition. Of course I did. Hey, Tab. I don't know how much time you got left. You can close out. I'm going to take off, and I'll talk to you on Monday, if not before.
All right. Thank you, Colonel Adams. I appreciate all of your contribution to today's show. I really always looking forward to your advice and your take on every matter. So thank you so much for joining us. That's Colonel Joe Adams with the Washington Guard. Thank you again for joining us today.
And Kevin, Joseph, thanks for my service. But believe me, it was my pleasure. Talk to you Monday.
Thank you, Colonel Adams. Have a great weekend. All right, that's Colonel Joe Adams, a hero in his own right, joining us on the show today. We really wanted to talk and break down what was going on in the Minneapolis shooting. I know it's old news for some of you, but I didn't have a show yesterday, so it's new news for me still. You're probably all tired of hearing about it right now. I appreciated Colonel Adams' perspective on all these issues. And I felt like, more than anything, trust me, when I woke up this morning, I slept for an hour and a half. Last thing I want to do is get up, and talk about anything, quite honestly. But I'm seeing just so many things unfolding. I don't know if you guys see it too. The world is changing, and it's changing very rapidly. It's a matter of you blink and you might miss it. But I really do think that this situation going on with Iran right now, and the uprising that is taking place, the fact that the regime is no longer in control. I mean, technically, they're still there. They're still making some arrests. But for the most part, they've lost complete control. There's nothing they can do. They tried to shut off internet yesterday. Doesn't matter, because guess what? Iranians have Starlink. Thank you, Elon Musk. And even though Starlink is banned, of course, in Iran, there are still some people who had it and who are still managing to get some video out. I've got one little video here I'm going to show you about Iran. And I put this on social media. Some of you may have already seen this, but this just goes to show what's happening. I don't think we're there yet. Take a look at this video here. Okay, that's just, look at all the people out there. There are millions of people all across Iran, and every major city, a lot of the villages who are rising up against the regime. Now, there are still some people in Iran who support the regime. Those are going to be your very hardcore Sharia law following, Muslims who want to continue following that ultra conservative Islamic view. Those are the people you're going to see fighting against, of course, some of the Iranians who have risen up. Now, of course, most of these are young people. You even see children. I can't tell you how many children I've seen out, partaking in some of these demonstrations. And while mostly peaceful, they're mostly just tearing down the Khomeini statues. They're burning photos of the regime and just flat out defying Sharia law. That's what it's really about, is they're defying Sharia law. And what did it take for these people to get there? 47 years. 47 years under Islamic rule, ultra conservative Sharia law rule, to get to this point. And they've tried to uprise, in the past, but every time they did, they got beaten back down. You'd see a long line of people lined up that were missing, murdered, executed in the streets. And that's happened to some degree here as well in this situation. Last I looked, the number was about 36, but there's many more who are missing. When it's all said and done, we're going to find out about a lot of other lives lost. But these people, they're out there in the streets fighting against the regime. They're fighting for their freedom. I don't think as Americans we're there yet. We talk about civil war. We talk about civil war. It's coming. It's coming. I don't think it's coming anytime soon. I really don't. I know that we're having a lot of tension. People are really being pushed from one direction to the other, but I don't think we're quite there yet. Most Americans still, they're getting up in the morning, they're going to their job, they're coming home and cooking dinner, planning vacations, and just going about the typical American way of life, looking forward probably to summer and barbecues and camping and other fun things. And the last thing they're thinking about is getting prepared for a civil war. But then on the other hand, we've got these people who are out in the city, different cities, and particularly Democrat-led cities, and they're just out of control, just completely out of control. Now, if we were still under, let's say, if Harris was our president, or if, let's say, Joe Biden was still our president, I think we would be a lot closer to civil war. But Donald Trump, even though he's really focusing right now on our overall big picture national security by going out and fighting all these battles with all of these countries who want to destroy our national security, very important things that he's still doing, of course, changing the world, not necessarily our country on the small scale, but on a much larger scale. You got to look at the big picture of all of these different foreign policies he's putting into place. It's changing everything. Literally, it's changing everything. Everything. You're about to see the entire political climate change all across the world with what's taking place. And that will, in turn, affect us here and make us a better, stronger country. But think about that. Donald Trump, at some point, is going to have had enough of these paid agitators, and he's going to do something about it, and I'm not sure it's going to be as diplomatic as some do think. Charlie says, reality is rough. A lot of lefties isn't on anyone's menu, but they do make it hard. Yeah. Good morning, Carl. Carl, gosh, I wish there was something, Carl, that I saw. Oh, I know what it was, Carl. I posted it just for you because on Monday's show, you asked me where I had the information about Venezuela, or the government ordering the arrests of people celebrating and who are happy about Maduro being leaving. So I posted a link on my Facebook page, but I couldn't link it to you. I tried. And Jay says you can only oppress a people for so long before they have enough. And Jay, it's interesting you say that, and that's why I say the designation of terrorism is really so subjective. Because we can call anyone we want a terrorist organization, a terrorist group, depending on how they're reacting to their oppression, right? Look at Al-Qaeda. I still find Al-Qaeda to be a terror organization. But guess what? The world doesn't anymore. They have a seat at the table. They're welcome at the White House. We're working deals with Al-Qaeda. And for some of you, and I know some of you are listening to this show right now because I know you, some of you had to fight against Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda killed your brothers and sisters. You saw them executing innocent people in the streets. You saw them burn people alive. And you know what we were up against when we were fighting against Al Qaeda. Now all of a sudden, Al Qaeda is our friend. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole today because I talk about it as it is probably too often. But it just goes to show, the designation of terrorism is very subjective. It really is, because and trust me, things can change very quickly too. You don't know what's going to unfold from today to tomorrow. You really have no idea. Right now, we think we're sitting pretty, don't we? We've got those rose-colored glasses on, and we're thinking, man, we got Donald Trump in office. We've got 3 more years, and some fantastic things are going to happen. We're seeing all these political strategies, playing out that are going to make us a better country. But things could change overnight. I don't even like to think of the ways in which they could change overnight, but they certainly could. And we could end up in some type of war tomorrow that could just change everything, the entire landscape. You just don't know. And that's why we do still have to be prepared. We'll talk to Colonel Adams about that next week, perhaps, about, preparing for something that you really just don't expect to happen. And we know Antifa, by the way, I didn't even know this. Antifa is in other countries besides the United States, creating havoc. And they have been attacking the electrical infrastructure in different countries and taking credit for it, because credit was given to ISIS. And Antifa's like, no, 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 that's not ISIS. That's us. We're doing that. We want you to understand what we're capable of. You don't know what these crazy, the Antifa is growing more radical by the day. Democrats want to say, oh, they don't exist. There's no such thing as Antifa, yet there is. They call themselves Antifa. They take credit for destroying these different, electrical facilities and taking power out for millions of people. So, they're a dangerous group to watch. Terrorists, absolutely, for sure. Not just terrorists in the United States, but they are a terror group worldwide, and they continue to grow. So we've got to keep an eye on what's going on, with Antifa. But man, things can change. Things can change very quickly for us. So we've got to make sure we always have our guard up. We cannot be complacent even for a minute. Not even for a minute. Things might look good, but man, things can change very quickly. Donna says that batch was from KCMO. Yeah, Donna, if you're talking about Renee Nicole Good, I did hear that. I heard what her background was, is that she lived most of her life in Colorado. At some point, her parents moved to Kansas City, Missouri. She was married, I think, twice to 2 men, from what I understand. And after her last divorce, she moved to Kansas City, Missouri, and lived with her parents before moving. I don't know how she met this woman, if they met in Kansas City, met in Minneapolis. But, they moved to Canada. I wish I would have talked about that when Colonel Adams with us. At one point, when Donald Trump was elected, Good and her wife Rebecca moved to Canada because they were amongst that group of people who said, we are not going to live in the United States if Donald Trump wins. And then Donald Trump won. So they moved to Canada. Well, Canada didn't work out for them quite the way they expected. And so they settled, kind of nearby there in Minneapolis. And I don't know how long they'd been in Minneapolis. I don't think it was very long, maybe a couple of months. It stated that where they lived was just, a few blocks away from where this incident took place. But, a lot's going to happen in the coming days, and this weekend could be very volatile. I know if you're here in St. Louis yesterday, the police had a lot on their hands. There was a protest that took place. I can't recall where. Some of you might know, somewhere off Manchester. And I saw that, police really had their hands full. We had people blocking streets and harassing people and just generally causing problems. And I think that's where I get frustrated. I 100% support freedom of speech, even hateful speech. I really do. I don't turn anybody in when they make hateful comments, and trust me, I get a lot of them. Because even though I don't agree with you, even though I don't like what you're saying, I support your right to the freedom of speech. You can say whatever you want to say. I don't care. Now, the difference is, of course, when you're making threats, that's a whole different story. I respect a person's right to protest. I might not agree why you're protesting, but I respect that right. But where that line is drawn is when you're using an app to track federal agents and you're traveling around the country, whether you're being paid to do it or not, you're traveling around the country from protest to protest. and you're coming up, like I saw a video of a guy this morning with this big backpack. I don't know what he had on. He had, I don't know if you guys saw this video, he had tongs on his hat. Everybody's like, what are those tongs for? Is he barbecuing? No, it's to pick up whenever ICE or federal agents throw out these smoke bombs or pepper bombs or whatever they might have, they use these tongs to pick them up and throw them back at the agents. I mean, this guy, he had quite the getup on. But those are the type of people we're dealing with, and those are domestic terrorists. And I don't understand why we don't have that designation that these people are domestic terrorists. You know, I know people who are Democrats who just hate Donald Trump. They hate it. They hate ICE agents. They hate what's happening. They go to these protests, but they are sitting on the sidelines and they're just watching. You know, they're not agitating. They're not fighting with anybody. They're just there because they're standing up for their rights. And I am 100% behind those people, even though I don't agree. You're peaceful. You're protesting. You're standing up for what you believe in. Good for you. But when you cross that line and you start attacking people, or you come prepared with your own gas mask and you're all masked up and you've got weapons and whatever else you might have, and you're attacking people, you're impeding traffic, then you've crossed the line. And I will never agree with people who cross that line. And in Good's case, we played the videos earlier. For any of you who may not have been here with us earlier in the show, we talked them through. And I will say it again. I don't think that she meant that her intention was to hit Officer Ross, but I think that she was so distracted. There was so much going on. You know, she had that Rebecca in her back window. She had the officers trying to tell her to get out on the other side. Now, I'm only going to guess. I don't know. You know, this is just me guessing, is that Rebecca leaned in and said, hurry up and go, or something along those lines, because that's just kind of standard, you know, what you're going to hear. I'm sure Rebecca didn't lean in and says, oh, give yourself up, get out of the car. No. And then we have Officer Ross, you know, coming from this other corner. He is being harassed. He doesn't have his full faculties about him because Rebecca is following him around with a camera, screaming at him, yelling at him, harassing him. And I honestly think when Officer Ross walked in from the right around the corner of Good's vehicle, I think the last thing on his mind is that she might drive forward. I think he was on his phone. He was just walking in front of her car. And then all of a sudden, you know, with no notice at all, she just hurried up and gunned it, you know. And I think that it probably caught her off guard. Him being there caught him off guard. And it's just one of those volatile situations that happens. And Officer Ross has every right to use lethal force against somebody who is using their vehicle as a weapon. And that's exactly what Good did. She used her vehicle as a weapon, whether she meant to or not. I really don't. I know a lot of you will disagree. I don't think she meant to hit Officer Ross. I think she was so distracted by all the chaos that was going on and just trying to hurry up and get out of there that it was just an unintended consequence, you know, of that. It's still her fault. No one is to blame but her and the leaders who told her that what she's doing is okay, that it's okay, you know, to impede federal agents. It's okay to resist arrest, and none of those things are okay. But, you know, we have video proof, video evidence that Officer Ross was hit by her vehicle. Not only was he hit by her vehicle, and he definitely was, clear as day, lifted him up off the ground, broke the side mirror, you know, started to drag him, you know, a couple of inches, and the shooting was absolutely justified. And I know it's crazy for some people that don't understand that it's justified because they think that she has the right to impede traffic and she has the right to leave when she wants to leave. And unfortunately, that's just not how the law works. So ultimately, it's her fault. Whether or not she intended to hit Officer Ross doesn't really matter. The fact is that she did. She wasn't obeying commands, and she did. And it's an unfortunate situation. And Donna says reports say that they were dealing with that woman earlier in the day. Yeah, these two had been following around ICE officers as part of a group, not just this day, but other days also. Other days also. And let's see here. Donna says those paid agitators, basically terrorists, need to be deeply investigated and prosecuted. They absolutely do. I just saw a video of one of those agitators who had somehow she used a metal trash can to hit an officer resulting in his hospitalization. He had injuries and she was shocked. I don't know if you guys saw the video. She got this big smile on her face, like, yeah, that was me. I hurt that officer. Then the judge is like, you get 6 months in prison and a $10,000 fine. And man, that smile went away pretty quickly. Because why? Because they're told by their Democrat leaders that what they're doing is okay. That's where the breakdown is. What they're doing is okay. ICE is here illegally, right? That's what Tim Walz wants to say. That's what the mayor of Minneapolis wants to say, and all these other cities. ICE is here illegally. They're not supposed to be arresting people. They're not supposed to touch you. They're not supposed to use their weapons. And then you have these morons who, instead of looking up the law and figuring it out and doing research for themselves and looking at how many people have been shot and killed by doing exactly what good did, and trust me, there's a lot. There is a lot, and more than I can possibly tell you, because guess what? When you resist arrest, guess what happens? The situation escalates. It escalates. And those officers have every right to stop you, including, guess what? Standing in front of your vehicle. Now, if they can avoid it, yes. But in this particular instance, Officer Ross was just walking across, and there you have good, her wheels are spinning, pointed directly at Ross. We've seen some videos where people played out this scenario. He couldn't see what direction her wheels were pointed in. I mean, he couldn't see that from his vantage point. He had no way of knowing. All he knew is, hey, she reversed. Now she's coming forward. He had a nanosecond to think about it. Your brain doesn't have time to analyze, should I jump out of the way? You just don't have time for any of that. And I'm glad that some of you get it, but I know some people don't. And let's see here. Charlie says, all boils down to mentally ill individuals being protected since Clinton to Biden. Consequences, definitely facing some consequences. And Jay says, it doesn't matter if she intended it or not. She drove towards an officer. You got that right, Jay. You've got that right. That's why, guess what? Don't put yourself in this situation, and I'm so frustrated. I wish that Democrat leaders would give out the right message, and they would say, hey, I understand you're out here because you don't like what's going on. Please come out, protest peacefully. But if you don't protest peacefully, you could get hurt or injured or preferably arrested, but they're not giving that message. They're saying they're here illegally. We got to stop them. And it's just the rhetoric I'm hearing against law enforcement is awful. I'm so glad. I am so glad that the Minneapolis police union spoke up. They spoke up, and they're demanding, in fact, that Tim Walz resigns for his terrible rhetoric towards law enforcement. I hope he does resign. I hope he's forced to resign, as well as all of these other Democrat leaders who are coming out and giving these speeches about ICE, because that goes beyond free speech. You're creating a bad situation. You're creating a threat. You're creating a volatile environment when you're coming out and telling people who are already emotionally worked up that ICE shouldn't be here. They're here illegally. And yes, it's okay for you to step up and fight up against them. Man, it's a bad situation. Bad situation. And Donna says that same officer that got hit was also dragged by a protester this past June. Yeah, Donna, I put that on my personal Facebook page. I couldn't share it on the show. I got a lot of warnings, and I don't think they were very happy about me putting it on my page at all. But it was a female officer. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the show, and it goes to show, she hesitated, which, as Colonel Adams said, she was trained to hesitate, to try to think out, but you don't have time to think. You don't have time to think. And she hesitated, and I think kind of thought that the driver would stop and not actually hit her. She got one shot fired off, and then they ran her over and killed her. So, it's sad, but there's no time to hesitate. There's just no time to hesitate. Jay says, had she got out of the vehicle, she would still be alive. You know what, Jay? Yes, she would. And I don't understand why people don't understand that. If you just comply, even if you don't think it's a lawful order, if you just comply, you get out of your vehicle, you hand over your information, whatever it is the officer's commands are. Whether you can hate police, it doesn't matter. You can hate the judicial system. You cannot trust it. It doesn't matter. There was a time, and I don't remember what year this was, it was probably during the Michael Brown times, but I remember going back and doing the research and figuring out, okay, because people will say, oh no, You know, I get taken into police custody, I'm going to get shot and killed. It is less than 0.000, like 0.0000 many zeros 1% chance that in police custody you're going to still be killed even if you don't resist. 99.9999, I can go on down the line with the nines, people who comply, guess what? You survive, you live to see another day. That's the only message that should be giving out to these people is, hey, you might not like it, we don't like it, ICE is here, they're doing the job they were set out to do. Back up, give them some space, we'll figure it out later. But man, they're not giving them that message. And let's see, Carl says, I hadn't looked at it quite like that. It's like yelling fire in a theater. You know, Carl, it's a lot like that. And it's causing a very volatile situation. All right, guys. Well, you know what? It is that time. I got to run because I have to go to work. I'm really tired, but I'm going to make it through the day. I hope you guys do too. I'm thrilled it's a Friday. It's a little gloomy outside, but I think today's going to still be a good day. Carl says, live and fight it in court. You got that right, Carl. That's one thing, you know, I only have one child. He's a son, my son, Zachary. And when he was young, he never got in trouble. He's never been in trouble with police or anything, but you know, that didn't matter. I warned him many years ago when he was just a teen. I said, if you ever have an encounter with police, comply. I don't care, you know, what the situation might be. Even if you know you did nothing wrong, you do what they tell you to do. That's it. You just do what they tell you to do. And as long as you do what they tell you to do, you're going to be okay. And then afterwards, you know, we're going to look at the situation. And if for some reason you get arrested, most of the time, if you do and you comply and you obey their commands, you're going to be set free to go about your business unless you've seriously committed a crime or they think you have. And then let's just say they take you into custody and you didn't do anything wrong. Well, guess what? We'll sort it out later. Maybe we'll sort it out right away. Maybe it'll be sorted out in court. But either way, you will survive to sort it out. And it's unfortunate that people just, again, they're not getting that message. Carl says, the sun is coming out. Yeah, I can maybe see a little sun coming out. I'm not going to get to enjoy most of it because I've got a lot of work to do today. But I hope you guys all have a good weekend. I don't know what your weekend plans are. I have some family coming in from the Chicago area later today, and I'm going to be a little bit busy with that. It's gardening time. That's what I'm going to be doing this weekend. I'm going to be gardening. I bought a ton of seeds, different flower seeds, some vegetable seeds, mostly flower seeds. I already have a ton of seeds already from you know, the prior season, but I am going to be getting some of my seeds started. I actually feel like I'm late. I wanted to start them that week between Christmas and New Year and just didn't get around to it. And some of the seeds, the shipment was delayed, but I'm going to work on that this weekend and get those seeds started. I'm very excited about it. I'm pretty good with getting my seeds started. I have about a 99% germination rate, but from there it just goes downhill for me. Hopefully this year it won't be the case. A lot of the problem is that I'm not always good about knowing when to pot up, you know, a plant or when to fertilize. Those are the two things I'm going to be working on this year. I've got to learn a little bit more about gardening to be a little bit more successful. Last year and the year before, I was just so far behind. I am determined this year I'm not going to be far behind. So that's going to be my weekend, hopefully catching up on some rest on Sunday. I hope you guys all have a good weekend, man. Keep an eye on what's going on. Keep an eye on the news. Watch that situation in Iran. Donald Trump, you know, talked about airstrikes in Mexico. I don't expect that to happen this weekend, but you know what? You never know. And there's a lot of things unfolding around the world, a lot of volatility taking place right here in our own country. I can guarantee you that by Monday, we're going to have an awful lot to talk about. In the meantime, of course, we'll be on the social media platforms talking about it, won't we? What would we do without that? I guess we'd be sending each other telegrams. Donna says, keep the animals off of them when you plant them. Yeah, Donna, that's the problem. This year, I'm building a fence around my garden. Last year, I lost pretty much all of my tomatoes, corn, and a lot of other things to deer, raccoon. That's not going to happen this year. It is not going to happen. I'm going to be like one of those people you saw back in the old days, sitting with my rifle next to the garden, just waiting for some critter to come in and think it has a chance. Karen, you also have a great weekend. And Matt, you have a good weekend also. Hopefully you get some rest as well. Well, guys, again, have a good weekend. I am off to work, and I will look forward to seeing you all on Monday. If any crazy breaking stuff happens over the weekend, we'll pop in and talk about it. Of course, I don't expect that to be the case, but you know what? You never know. Have a great weekend all.